if I told you your next gaming PC could become more expensive, even if you don't upgrade your GPU? What if I told you that a 128GB DDR5 memory kit has been reported at $3,399, and that some mainstream memory kits have seen absolutely massive price increases? But RAM isn't the only problem. GPU prices are also under pressure. AI is consuming enormous amounts of memory. AMD is gaining CPU market share, NVIDIA is pushing deeper into AI, and even the humble gaming PC is getting caught in the middle. And this is only the beginning. What's up, PC gamers? Welcome to the very first episode of Ghosting Techy Updates, a brand new weekly news segment from Ghost Benchmark. Before we get into today's stories, hit like, comment below, share this video with a fellow PC gamer, and subscribe to Ghost Benchmark. Because from now on, every Sunday or Monday, we're bringing you the biggest PC hardware and gaming tech stories from the week. No endless tech jargon, no fake hype. Instead, we're going to ask one simple question. What does this actually mean for PC gamers? I'm Ghost, and this is Ghosting Techy Updates.
Update 1. RAM prices have gone crazy. Let's start with perhaps the biggest story of the week, RAM prices, and the numbers are getting difficult to ignore. According to recent pricing analysis from Tom's Hardware, some DDR5 memory kits have experienced increases of up to 500% year over year. And here's the number that really grabs attention. A 128GB DDR5 6400 kit was tracked at around $3,399. That's roughly 10 times its previous low price. And this isn't limited to massive 128GB kits. Some 32GB DDR5 kits that were previously available for under $200 have also seen dramatic price increases. So why?
Update 2. AI is eating memory.
Here's where the story gets much bigger than gaming. The current memory shortage is being heavily driven by demand from AI data centers. Modern AI infrastructure needs enormous quantities of memory, and not just ordinary desktop RAM. We're talking about HBM, server DRAM, high-capacity memory systems, and enormous quantities of GPUs and accelerators. Industry reporting indicates that hyperscale AI data center demand is absorbing a huge portion of DRAM production capacity. That puts pressure on the supply available to consumer markets. And here's the crazy part. The same semiconductor industry supplying your gaming PC is also supplying the infrastructure powering the AI boom. So when you hear AI is causing RAM prices to rise, don't imagine an AI company literally walking into a computer store and buying your RAM. That's not what's happening. It's a supply allocation problem. Manufacturers have finite production capacity, and when high-value enterprise products demand more capacity, consumer products can get squeezed.
Update 3. Even DDR4 is getting hit.
And here's something that could surprise people. You might think, fine, I'll just buy DDR4. But even DDR4 isn't completely safe. Recent reporting indicates DDR4 pricing has also increased substantially, with some segments seeing increases of roughly 120 to 180%. Why? Because when DDR5 becomes expensive, people start looking for alternatives, and suddenly demand for older memory increases. That's the weird part of a shortage. A product can be old and still become expensive.
Update 4. What does this mean for gamers?
So what should gamers actually do? If you're building a new gaming PC, 32GB remains a sensible target for many gamers. If you're playing games while recording, streaming, editing videos, or multitasking heavily, 64GB can make sense. But here's what you should not do. Don't see a scary RAM price chart and immediately buy 128GB because you think prices will never come down. That's speculation. Memory markets are cyclical. The smarter approach is simple. Buy what you actually need.
Update 5. The GPU problem is back.
Update 5. The GPU problem is back. And unfortunately, RAM isn't the only component under pressure. Graphics cards are also being affected by rising memory costs. PC Partner Group, the company behind brands including Zotac, Inno3D, and Manly, has warned about significant cost increases and shortages, particularly affecting entry-level graphics cards during the second half of 2026. And the numbers are interesting. In one part of PC Partner's business, GPU shipment volume reportedly dropped by 38.4%, while revenue increased by 73.9%. How? Because average selling prices increased dramatically. The reported average selling price increase was around 181% in that segment.
Update 6. The budget GPU could be the biggest victim.
And this is where I think PC gamers should pay attention. You might assume expensive flagship GPUs would be the biggest problem, but budget GPUs could actually become one of the most painful segments. Why? Because budget buyers have almost no room to absorb price increases. If a $1,500 GPU becomes $1,700, a wealthy enthusiast might still buy it. But if a $250 graphics card becomes $350, suddenly the entire value proposition changes. That's why entry-level GPUs could be particularly vulnerable. Recent reporting specifically points toward shortages and higher pricing pressure in that segment.
Update 7. GPU Price Check.
GPU Price Check. Current tracking shows a very strange GPU market. Some affordable cards remain relatively reasonable, while certain higher-end models have experienced huge increases. For example, PC Gamer's latest price tracking lists the RTX 5090 around $4,298 in the US market. The RTX 5070 was also reported to have risen substantially. Meanwhile, some mid-range cards remain much better value. So the lesson isn't never buy a GPU, it's watch the price to performance ratio, because the most expensive GPU isn't automatically the best purchase.
Update 8. AMD is quietly winning market share.
AMD is quietly winning market share. Now, let's move from prices to CPUs, because while the desktop CPU market is struggling, AMD is gaining ground. According to recent Mercury Research-based shipment analysis reported by Tom's Hardware, AMD reached around 30.7% of the overall x86 market in Q2 2026. And when including IoT and SoCs, the figure was reported at around 34.1%. But there's an important detail. The desktop CPU market itself contracted by more than 20% year over year. So AMD isn't simply winning because everyone is buying more desktop CPU markets. It's also gaining share because its shipments declined less severely than Intel's.
Update 9. AMD versus Intel is getting interesting.
And there's another important number. AMD's mobile CPU share reportedly reached around 28.9%. And in servers, AMD's EPYC processors reportedly captured as much as 46.4% of the core data center market, excluding Intel's Edge processors. So AMD's challenge to Intel isn't happening in just one market. It's happening across desktop, laptop, server, and gaming.
Update 10. Ryzen 7 7700X3D arrives.
And AMD just added another weapon to its gaming lineup, the Ryzen 7 7700X3D. It's an 8-core, 16-thread Zen 4 CPU with 96 megabytes of L3 cache, including 64 megabytes of 3D V-cache. Its boost clock reaches 4.5 gigahertz. And gaming performance? Very strong. PC Gamer's testing puts it around 94 to 95% of the newer Ryzen 7 9800X3D's gaming output in its testing. Sounds amazing, right? There's just one problem.
Update 11. The 7700X3D value problem.
The Ryzen 7 7700X3D has an MSRP of around $329, but current retail pricing can put it close to the older 7800X3D. And if two CPUs cost nearly the same, why buy the slower one? That's exactly why reviewers are questioning its value. And Intel isn't sitting quietly. The Core Ultra 5 250K Plus has become an interesting competitor around the $200 price point, offering strong gaming and productivity performance. So the lesson? Don't shop by product generation. Shop by price, performance, and platform cost.
Update 12. The RX 9050 question.
Now, let's talk about budget graphics. The Radeon RX 9050 has attracted attention this week, and not all of it is positive. Reports indicate review samples were restricted or difficult for reviewers to obtain, with Hardware Unboxed reportedly sourcing one independently. Testing reportedly produced around 49 FPS at 1080p across a 10-game test suite. At roughly the $280 price point discussed in coverage, that raises a very simple question. Is this actually good value? Because in the budget GPU market, every dollar matters.
Update 13. Windows 11 gaming problem.
Update 13, Windows 11 gaming problem. Now, this one could affect you directly. A recent Windows 11 security update has been associated with gaming crashes on systems using certain low-level RGB or peripheral software drivers. Reports indicate that Microsoft acknowledged the issue. So if your PC suddenly started crashing after an update, don't immediately assume my GPU is dying. Check Windows updates, peripheral software, RGB utilities, and recently installed drivers. Sometimes the problem isn't the hardware. It's the software sitting between the hardware and the game.
Update 14. DLSS 4.5.
Update 14. DLSS 4.5. And now, something for NVIDIA users. DLSS 4.5 has already become part of NVIDIA's 2026 technology push. The technology focuses heavily on AI-assisted image reconstruction and ray reconstruction. And what's particularly interesting right now is that enthusiasts are already experimenting with newer model files. But remember, a leaked or experimental model file doesn't automatically mean every game will suddenly perform better. Actual results depend on the game, the implementation, the GPU, the rendering resolution, the DLSS mode, and the specific model being used. So don't believe every DLSS 4.5 doubles FPS thumbnail you see. Look at the actual benchmark. That's what we do here.
Update 15. $100,000 NVIDIA desktop.
And now, the most ridiculous piece of hardware news, NVIDIA's DGX Station. This isn't a gaming PC, it's a desktop AI supercomputer designed for developers, researchers, and data scientists. NVIDIA says the system can provide up to 20 petaflops of AI compute and features 748 gigabytes of coherent memory. It is designed to handle AI models with up to 1 trillion parameters locally, and recent reporting has put its price at nearly $100,000. For perspective, that's enough money to build an entire gaming room and still have money left over. But this machine isn't designed for gaming. It's designed to bring data center class AI computing onto a desk, and that tells us something important.
Update 16. The PC is becoming an AI machine.
The definition of a powerful computer is changing. A few years ago, we mostly talked about CPU cores, GPU FPS, SSD speeds, RAM capacity. Now we're increasingly talking about AI accelerators, NPUs, tensor performance, HBM, local AI models, and AI compute. The PC isn't disappearing, it's evolving, and gaming is only one part of that evolution.
Update 17. 4K 240Hz or 1080p 480Hz.
And finally, let's talk monitors. Gigabyte is preparing a 27-inch OLED gaming monitor that can reportedly operate at 4K 240Hz or 1080p 480Hz. That means one display can serve two completely different audiences. Want cinematic AAA gaming? 4K 240Hz. Want competitive esports? 1080p 480Hz. And that's an interesting direction for gaming monitors. Instead of forcing gamers to choose between resolution and refresh rate, manufacturers are starting to give us both.
Final rapid fire round.
All right, one final rapid-fire recap. RAM, prices are exploding. AI, driving enormous memory demand. DDR4, not immune. GPUs, price pressure is returning. Budget GPUs, potentially the biggest victims. AMD, gaining x86 market share. Ryzen 7 7700X 3D, fast, but value is questionable. RX 9050, budget performance under scrutiny. Windows 11, some gamers are dealing with crash issues. DLSS 4.5, AI image reconstruction keeps evolving. NVIDIA DGX Station, a $100,000 AI monster. OLED, 4K 240Hz and 1080p 480Hz are coming together.
Ghost benchmark verdict.
But here's what I think is the most important story of this entire week. It's not one CPU, it's not one GPU, it's not one RAM kit. It's the fact that the entire PC hardware market is changing. AI is pulling enormous amounts of semiconductor capacity. Memory prices are under pressure. GPU prices are becoming unpredictable. Desktop CPU demand is weak, while AMD continues gaining share. And consumers are being forced to think harder about every component they buy. So in 2026, the smartest PC builder isn't necessarily the person with the biggest budget. It's the person who knows where to spend it.
And that's where we're going to end the very first episode of Ghosting Techy Updates. From now on, every Sunday or Monday, Ghost Benchmark will bring you another weekly roundup of the biggest PC tech stories, the biggest hardware controversies, the latest gaming technology, and the numbers behind the hype. But I want to hear from you. Which story from today's episode surprised you the most? Was it the RAM crisis, the GPU prices, AMD gaining CPU market share, the $100,000 NVIDIA workstation, or something else? Comment below. And if you enjoyed episode 1, like the video, share it with your PC gaming friends. And if you're new here, subscribe to Ghost Benchmark, because we're not here to tell you what the companies want you to believe. We're here to look at the hardware, check the numbers, test the performance, and tell you what's actually worth your money. This is Ghost Benchmark. This was Ghosting Techy Updates episode 1. I'll see you next Sunday or Monday. Until then, stay curious, keep benchmarking, and ghost out.